All right, getting back to this conversation, and for number one, for the
Don't
person
worry that he couldn't shoot. What an idiot. I can't believe they had me on here talking about basketball.
The number one thing that, again, someone said to Derek, why are you talking about this? We're talking about this not only just because of the what if part of it, but because of where we are today. Yes, they have put the right team and assembled that together at age 30 for Joel Embiid, with Maxey panning out, now bringing in Paul George as a free agent pickup. But we're talking about this because of the things that, again, are the ripple effect of maybe you didn't have to do this. Maybe you would have an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, maybe a Finals appearance already. Maybe some other things would have been put together from the Fultz piece working out, trading Ben Simmons, getting more assets, Kale being drafted potentially, and being, again, a young player coming out of college at 22 with them at his age, going with them in that window of 25 for Embiid, 22 for Kale, maybe what? Fultz would have been 20 at that time. So the timeline for all of that going forward, and then the things that happened thereafter, is why we are talking about it today, and it just simply makes sense.
And look,
it's what Sixer fans talk about.
Yes, and you bring it up, but like, what could have been what could the last 5 years have looked like if they didn't make so many mistakes? Legacies hang by a thread in sports, and especially in basketball. I bring this up all the time, but Allen Iverson, if that Vince Carter shot just comes up, 2 inches shorter than it went, Allen Iverson can be viewed very differently in this town as a player who underachieved most postseasons. That was the only time he made a second round, was that run, and it almost didn't happen based off of an inch or two.
Sure.
So when you start talking about legacies, looking at these what ifs, these things that Joel Embiid had nothing to do with, they impact his legacy. So I think sometimes it's just useful to remind yourself of the context around this era of Sixers basketball. I think some of the mistakes from this era are useful context when bringing up to discuss Joel Embiid, to discuss the modern era of the Sixers, and to discuss legacy. That doesn't in any way let him off the hook. And if you go back, Kyle and I have written many things critical of Joel Embiid, specifically at the end of the season. Devon has been saying it as well. It's a little harder to just search through the 97.5 airwaves, but they're out there. But it is always really, really important just to keep in mind how many weird, crazy things happen with this organization because they directly impact the legacy of one of the greatest players in franchise history.
So get ready, because we're going to have a few more. So if you don't like this one, you might not like some of the other ones that didn't work out either. Although you like this team, there's still a lot of question marks of if they're even going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals because of the NBA champion in front of them, the team up 95, looking at them in New York and what they could be as well, and fighting, in the Milwaukee Bucks also. So you're not simply handing them an Eastern Conference Finals appearance or crown. They still have to get the work done. The point of it is, when you look at Denver, as we talk about them winning a championship, Nikola Jokic, homegrown, along with Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., you make a good trade with Aaron Gordon, things work out overall for you when you do things the right way and you have the right pieces and building the right way around your franchise player. Different type of player, but again, more pick and roll centric point guard than Markelle Fultz. A wing, whoever the wing is, working out that you draft, and so many other pieces, especially if you move on from Simmons like Derek has talked about.
And again, the best in their prime player. So I'm going to cross Harden off the list because I don't think he was in his prime when he was here. He's still very good and probably better than Jimmy Butler, but he wasn't in his prime. But the best in their prime running mate that they could have had next to Joel Embiid was Jimmy Butler, where you could have had a long runway. And they didn't keep him. And look, a lot of people will blame Brett Brown, and those two didn't get along at all. The biggest barrier, because quite frankly, if any team is choosing between a non-Greg Popovich head coach and a star, they will side with that star almost every time if they have any real belief in them as a long-term piece. The Sixers didn't, and a large part of that was because they didn't believe that Butler and Simmons could work together long-term. I have no doubt that if they believed that could have been a successful relationship, they would have either found a way to make it work with Brett Brown, and I've actually been told that he would have played for Brett Brown under the right conditions, or they would have just fired Brett Brown and moved on. Like, you just don't pick a going to be harsh to Brett, a middling coach over a star player. It just doesn't happen.
And that's why we said a wing. So if you have Fultz with Butler and Embiid, and look, when I said wing, not just saying Kale, because quite frankly, if they drafted Kel and kept him, Minnesota would have asked for Markelle in that trade. So just saying that, right? All right. So Jimmy Butler comes here, and now you have Fultz, Butler, and then Embiid. You still have a trio
and whatever
of more
assets you could have gotten for Ben Simmons. Like there's just like being desperate because Markelle didn't work out caused so many reactionary moves that they didn't really recover from until they drafted Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
And again, because it took Maxey 2 years to really get onto the scene, you're now there's a very short window with Embiid and Maxey, which you're trying to make the most of, and you hope that they can. It's just you lost a lot of time.
We all silly like the mayor.